Greetings, everybody. It's Lily Lily. Greetings, everybody. So today, I'm going to address an article that deeply disturbed me. Now, of course, there are plenty of people who, given the event in the United States of America recently, have been fairly upset. And many of those who have not been upset have been deeply concerned. Some of us have been afraid, and some have felt a host of negative feelings, and yes, some have celebrated. And of course, during any political event, there are usually some who celebrate the results, some who don't care, and some um, some who outright hate them or feel damaged therethrough. And I want to talk with you today about one of the things that concerned me. And one of them is the rise of violence towards those in certain political minority spectrums. These, or even those perceived as being a member of one of those political or religious minorities. Now, I emphasize perceived as because while the man who was the outer target of the person who attempted violence towards him that I'm talking about in tonight's video, in this particular video, because I will make another one about something mostly very different. I just so I just want for to talk for a few minutes about this one. And by the way, my desire in making this video is to present as gentle and sharing a slant on this as I can. Maybe even a diplomatic one. But also to stand for what I believe in. as far as I can in a gentle yet firm way, as much as I can. So please take it in that spirit as much as you can. Um, and I'll do my best for it to remain composed. While as much as I can, while also being very, very deliberately firm in standing for what I do because it's important to me. So, what I, um, one of the reasons I say perceived members of political, while the man in question, who was targeted by the individual who attacked him, was a member of a minority group in my country. He, what, the outer reason he was targeted actually in many places around the world, including the United States, of course, could have been very conceivably endured by someone who wasn't actually a member of, of his minority group, which is for, um, but could have been easily endured by someone who was but a supporter of the minority groups and also supported the the organizations and the causes that he did. I refer, in this case, where it concerns the organization, I refer to the Human Rights Campaign, which does very much campaign for uh, the rights of those within the GLBTQ political and minority spectrum. And also, who now people within this spectrum come into, of the ones in that particular letter abbreviation, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered, and queer. I'll do my best for to communicate as gently and politely, yet openly and specifically as I can what each one meaneth to the best of mine ability, because some of these terms seem a little bit, to me, a bit more flexible than others. Gay as a minority label can refer to anybody, irrespective of their sex or emotional gender, who can only fall in love with those of their same sex, fall in love with and or be sexually attracted to those of their same sex. It is very frequently used to refer to male-bodied and male-identified people who can only fall for those with male genitalia, and or only feel sexual attraction to those with said parts. Lesbian refers to female and or female bodied and female identified people who can only feel sexual towards and or fall in love with other people who are female and or female bodied and of female identity. Bisexual refers to someone who, to some degree, though not necessarily equally, can fall in love with and feel sexual attraction towards those of either of either sex and or potentially more than one emotional gender. Transgendered is somebody who was born in one body but identifies strongly as someone of the sex and or gender into which they were not physically born. Queer can be someone who fits one or more of these categories, and often refers to someone who does not fit perfectly into any of them or fits into more than one. The person who was attacked was a quote unquote out gay man. He and the person who attacked him are Florida residents. However, here in Portland, Oregon, those triggers that his attacker decided meant that he was absolutely certainly a faggot, quote unquote faggot, could in my city have equally been someone, evidence of someone who supported the rights of those of people in that range, a so-called straight supporter. Now, the attack survivor was more than a supporter, he happens to be gay. And it is certainly possible that his attacker was following intuition. Everything's possible. But this individual, who was also male, decided that not only that that not only that not only that the person he attacked by cause of his, in this case, perceived sexual orientation that also did happen to be his sexual orientation, um, deserved violence by cause of that sexual orientation, but also by cause of Trump's recent win. Now, it is fairly well known by now that Mr. Trump, that's been overtly doing his best to win to his side much of the most conservative element in our country and around the world. However, um, I don't know, based on what I've read, of any commentary Mr. Trump hath made that where he actually says that violence against people only based on sexual orientation or color or any of that other stuff. I don't know of any time where he outright said that violence against them based only on those things was okay. I have noticed articles where he mentioned that he advocated violence against rowdy protesters. The emphasis he seems to have made, based on what I remember having read, was that he was okay with roughing up people who were being rowdy, in effect. That happened to be political protesters, but he seemed, based on what I remember, to have been more anti the rowdiness than anti the people based on minority status. I'm not saying that his words have been necessarily kind towards people of a political minority status, and in fact, the video where he was shown being more than a little insulting towards a reporter with a speech impediment is well known. But I don't think, based on the articles I've read, that Mr. Trump necessarily supports violence against people only based on minority status or perceived minority status. And in fact, according to some reports I've read, Mr. Trump helped fund and tend to the hospital needs of Miss Denise Scott, an African American houseless female who stood or rather sat guarding his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, who was quote unquote roughed up by some of my fellow liberals, about which I also made a video, and I was thoroughly disappointed in those people who did that to Mrs. Scott. That is not appropriate at all for anybody ever, period. Now, I do think, back to the article in question, that what happened was just wrong, and now it's time for me to tell you a little more. So the person who suffered this act of violence, his is 75-year-old Chuck Redding in Florida. This man, who is a senior citizen, which in my city, on in our public system, would be labeled an honored citizen, as would those with disabilities. But this man, Chuck Redding, had another person, a male person, tail him and in a dark colored Jeep as far as his place of residence. And according to him, he said that the new president, quote unquote, says we can kill all you faggots now. Quote unquote. This is not right. For one thing, elect Trump have been cited as calling for unity and such, in some of his official quotations. Since the results, which, by the way, the Electoral College will only vote on December 19th. So he is not yet absolutely confirmed. And this man, Mr. Redding, his attacker seems to have spaced the articles and announcements where Mr. Trump does call for unity and cooperation. I don't know how easy it will be for him to be cooperative myself, but I trust that he will do his best within whatever his nature will let him, because his career depends on it. To the person who attacked Mr. Redding, that was thoroughly inappropriate. I can see how, if you're a religious person, in any of the mainstream religions, that you might view certain things that Obama did with as much concern as I view some of the things potentially that Mr. Trump could do. I can see how potentially, if you're a religious person and you feel angry that in our admittedly very politically correct society and world, that the views of you and people like you have not been heard anew or supported anew outside of your own your own social group or religious groups. I could intellectually understand how you might view the rise of someone like Mr. Trump with some relief. If I were a member of one of your groups, I might too. But what this doesn't excuse is you're attacking that blatantly someone who had not attacked you. I'm going on the assumption, sir, because your name isn't known yet in the art as of the article I read. Your name isn't known by Mr. Redding or the authorities or by anyone but yourself and God, if you have one. But I'm going to assume that to you, Mr. Redding is an unknown. I'm going to assume that you did not know him personally, that for you, he represented, based on the bumper stickers you saw, that he represented something much bigger to you. That he represented, perhaps, everything that you held holy or important. Being trod on, or at least oppressed. I'm going to assume that you have felt like you didn't have enough support in this broader US society, politically speaking, for voicing your opinions freely, for I'm going to assume that to you, what you what your community calls traditional marriage, is very important. Betwixt one male and one female only. And I want to share with you something. None of the people that I know who are um, self identified as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered, or queer would deny you legally the right to have that be the way for you. Not a one. Including myself. I am bisexual. I am married in everything but law currently to someone who is very male in body and emotionally androgynous like me, in heart and mind, which means he's both very masculine and very feminine in his emotions and how he thinks. And we are both, emotionally speaking, somewhat gender different, even though our bodies are very gender conforming. At least as far as I know. I haven't had my hormone levels tested, and I know his are just fine. But those who are in the GLBTQ community, among some who are either gay male or lesbian, there are some who, when they started up, realizing that their bodies were only capable of falling for those who were of the same sex as themselves, really wished that God or some force would make them different. I know someone who's a gay male, whose identity I will otherwise protect with everything I've got, who told me once that he really wished he could fall for it and be sexually attracted towards a female because he was effing tired of men. He told me so himself. I will not share his name. But he couldn't. Literally could not. Neither he nor anybody else could make you or anyone else gay if it wasn't in your body's capability already. No good person of any orientation would be a sexual threat to you or anyone else. least not on purpose. I'm going to assume Mr. Redding did not hit on you. I'm going to assume that you were a total unknown to him and him unto you. And I want to ask you something. If that is correct, he didn't actually do anything overtly to court your deed. Did what you did really help? Maybe, I mean, did it help you feel better? If it did help you to say it, maybe that's all that was really needed. And maybe it might help you to share some of what you're worried about or concerned about with someone who can help you. It could be a best friend, or it could be a priest or a therapist. Another thing is nobody who is of the GLBTQ spectrum who is a good person wants you to necessarily shift your religious practice or anything like that unless you want you to. We're not interested in forcing religious practice to be anything other than what it is ethically or ritually, unless it includes violence. Against someone for any unprovoked reason. And if sexual orientation really were a choice rather and only a lifestyle rather than an unshiftable biological thing. For many. Not most. Then there then even then, if it were only if it were only a lifestyle then within the framework of the Bill of Rights, for every person in this country, their religion would be betwixt them and their God, if they have one. And if it is entirely biological and unshiftable, then A, you, if you're straight, and I assume you are, have nothing to worry about. Because most gay men seek out places to date where they know other gay men are likely to be found. They don't seek straight men. They seek gay men. Or at least bisexual men. If you don't want any chance of ever being hit on by a gay man, don't go to a gay bar. I mean, seriously. If your religion forbids you to engage in homosexual behavior, then don't engage in it. But if your religion is one that feels that all homosexuality is a sin across the board, if you feel that you are incapable of keeping yourself from violence against those who are homosexual, then either get help, I beg, or do everything you can to avoid them. Maybe you don't like people very much. If that's true, A, often I understand. But B, if that is true, and you're afraid of encountering someone homosexual, maybe you can find a way. If that really bothers you that much and seeing someone is out of the question for you within your beliefs and or your fears, then maybe you can figure out a way to seclude yourself as permanently as you'd like. In the old days, centuries back, in the days when the Roman Catholic Church, religiously speaking, ruled much of Western Europe, there was a a subset of religious called anchorites. Anchorite could refer to either sex. Anchoress was usually someone who was female. Okay, always someone who was female who became a church supported hermit. Now in those days, what was often done was the church held funerary rites for that person's role as a regular member of society before they became walled off from the world. As they devoted themselves to contemplation, to study of scripture and theology, and to God, to prayer, and the only way they could speak with someone in the outside world was through an iron grill. They could have a servant who would be their go-between if they needed food. And that was the only human companionship other than perhaps, as needed, a priest, that they were allowed. And if they were female, it was, according to the anchoring rule, advised that unless necessity absolutely mandated that they have things like cattle, that they not keep any animal other than a cat. I'm not saying you have to keep to all that. I mean, I assume you would have to go to the grocery store on occasion. Although Amazon.com could probably help you out there too, if you really had to. But seriously, I would think that if seeing somebody, even accidentally, who was gay, was that offensive to you, and that much of a fear or stress trigger for you, in a way that if you couldn't help yourself any other way, maybe the best thing would be to isolate yourself from hominids entirely, or as close to entirely as you can. I'm not saying you have to, but if you couldn't, if you couldn't keep yourself from violence in any other way, maybe that would be the best way. Although I do suggest you have a companion animal, because isolation can, if it's total, suck. I hope, I hope you see this video. B, I really hope that you don't engage in any more violence as much as you can help it. against anybody, gay or otherwise. And if you feel like you can't help from engaging in violence towards someone, um, um, then it might be a good idea in some fashion to get help. Um, I hope your world gets better. It's that your everyday lived reality gets better for you, because when things feel bad, then it can sometimes seem as if it helps things outside also feel bad. I know this one. I've lived it. Um, and whatever your whatever your faith orientation, I hope that thy God, if any, blesses thee within thine own free will. Um, Mr. Redding, what what happened to you was really, really bad. It sounds like it was really scary. And I'm glad that you made it through. Um, I want to offer you and anyone watching this video, should they be willing to accept one, a friendly hug. Um, I do know what it's like. Um, um, to be to be taunted, and put down for what one is. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I am myself bisexual, and I I was at one of my schools when I was still pre-adolescent, um, along with my then best friend, alleged incorrectly to have done it with that person whose confidentiality will be maintained. Before I knew what that meant. And um, and so I I do under I would not myself um because of medical reasons, my body didn't have any interest in anybody in a more than romantic way smack until I turned 18. So when it happened to me that I was taunted at the start, I didn't even know what a lesbian was. And it would take years for my body to have more than romantic feelings for anybody. And so even though I don't have the perspective of someone male who also has a male body, who can only fall for male body dominance. I do understand what it's like to be targeted for what one is or what one is thought to be along sexual orientations. I'm sorry that your attacker hurt you and scared you that way, because that was not right along multiple lines. And I won't go on to all of them. One of them is that it's just wrong to attack anyone who did not at any point attack you. It's wrong to according to a very old code of chivalry, it's absolutely wrong to attack an unarmed man. I'm going to guess you were unarmed by anything other than your car. And that's or your fists. And from what I read in the article, you you didn't return any violence to this person who did not do anything close to an appropriate thing. And it certainly wasn't a gallant thing. And I won't tell you to forgive him, because not everybody's brain has that ability. My own brain doesn't forgive, even when my behavior does. And so if you never did, I understand. Even though if your brain does have the ability to forgive, I would discourage I would discourage actively nursing vengeance. Um, but um, know that your um, your plight, word of your plight, has reached the West Coast. For what it's worth, and I hope that as scary as that it was, that you you do your best, if not, whether or not getting calm feels feasible, that you do your best to come into some kind of center, even if sometimes doing that feels like it's at best what I call emocio-intellectual center. That space where you don't really either feel or not feel. You're not repressing, but you're also not actively emoting, other than perhaps to just approach the moment or your day with either something like into factuality or just an openness to finding out what it will bring and just watching without really emoting in any direction whatsoever, in any active way. That's what I call socio-intellectual center. And I admit, for me, it's one of my brain's defaults. um, but I do think anyone um, can attain that, at least temporarily. Um, and of course, I'm sure you know probably better than your attacker does or did, that it's okay if you choose to, and it's right for you to seek help and to talk to someone, uh, to sort through what happened. I overtly say that it's not for everybody at all stages of his life, and for reasons of my own, I use the his on purpose in that sentence. Um, but if you feel it's right for you, or what this person, your attacker, did, has left a stressful and or scary imprint on you, it's okay to talk to someone professional. But I think you know that. Blessings, Mr. Redding, and good luck. And I offer you also a variant of the same blessing I offered the other. if you have any higher being or god or goddess or anything else that you turn to, then may that being, whatever she may be, bless you within your own free will and willingness and ability to embrace. Blessings. And to everyone watching, I hope you all have a wonderful night. I will post another video on something totally off topic and to anything you saw in this one. Mostly off topic. And it certainly will not involve violence. And I hope I hope you have a wonderful Friday the 18th upcoming. If you're in the States or this side of the Atlantic, and if you're in another country, then I hope that the rest of your Friday is wonderful within what you are willing to allow. Blessings and good luck.